The shadow that follows, the coffee cup shattered before Mira even touched it. One moment it sat innocently on the cafe table, steam curling from its rim. The next it exploded into 1,000 glittering shards, sending cappuccino foam and ceramic fragments across the polished wood. Students around her gasped and jumped back, but Mira only closed her eyes and counted to 10, the way she'd been doing since these accidents started 3 months ago. "I'm so sorry," she whispered to the barista rushing over with a mop. "I'll pay for it." "Don't worry about it, hun," the woman said, but her eyes held that familiar wariness. The same look Mira had been getting her whole life. The look that said something's not quite right about you. Mira gathered her psychology textbooks with trembling hands and fled into the October afternoon. Dead leaves crunched under her boots as she hurried across the quad of Crescent Valley University, her dark hair whipping in the wind. She needed to get to Professor Chen's office hours, needed to focus on something normal, something that made sense. That's when she felt it again. The presence. It had started 2 weeks ago, subtle as a shadow at first, a prickling at the nape of her neck. The sensation of being watched, studied, hunted. Mira spun around, scanning the clusters of students lounging on the lawn, the joggers circling the fountain, the couples holding hands beneath the oak trees. Nothing. No one paying her any attention. But the feeling didn't fade. If anything, it intensified, a heat that seemed to wrap around her like invisible arms, making her skin flush despite the autumn chill. "You're being paranoid," she muttered, forcing herself to keep walking. "It's just stress, finals, the weird powers thing. Totally normal to feel like you're losing your mind." Except it wasn't just stress. Things had been escalating. Light bulbs exploding when she got angry, windows cracking when she had nightmares. And yesterday, in the library, she'd made an entire shelf of books fly across the room just by thinking about how much she needed a particular reference text. She was either developing telekinesis or having a complete psychotic break. Neither option was particularly comforting. The psychology building loomed ahead, its Gothic architecture casting long shadows. Mira climbed the stone steps and pushed through the heavy oak doors, grateful for the warmth and the smell of old paper. Professor Chen's office was on the 3rd floor, and she took the stairs 2 at a time, her messenger bag bouncing against her hip. She was so focused on her destination that she didn't notice the man until she literally collided with him. "Oh God, I'm so..." The apology died on her lips. He was tall, easily 6'3", with broad shoulders that filled out his black leather jacket like it had been custom made. His hair was dark, almost black, and slightly too long, curling at his collar. But it was his eyes that stopped her heart, silver gray like moonlight on water, and so intense she felt pinned in place. "Careful," he said. And his voice was deep, rough silk that seemed to vibrate through her bones. His hands were on her arms, steadying her, and even through her sweater she could feel the heat of his touch. It was the same heat she'd felt watching her all week. It's him. The thought came unbidden, absolute. This was the source of the presence, the shadow that had been following her. But how could she possibly know that? Mira stepped back and his hands dropped immediately, though something flickered in those strange eyes. Disappointment? I wasn't watching where I was going. No harm done. He tilted his head, studying her with an expression she couldn't read. Not threat, exactly. More like recognition. As if he knew her, had been looking for her. "Mira, isn't it?" Ice flooded her veins. "How do you know my name?" "We have a mutual friend. Professor Chen." The lie was smooth, practiced, but Mira could somehow sense the deception underneath it, like bitter coffee beneath cream. "I'm Kai, I just transferred here." He extended a hand. Mira stared at it, every instinct screaming at her not to make contact again. The first touch had been overwhelming, intense, like touching a live wire. But refusing would be rude, suspicious. She placed her hand in his. The world tilted. For a fraction of a second, she could have sworn she saw something impossible. A massive wolf with silver gray eyes standing in a moonlit forest, its gaze fixed on her with fierce possessive intensity. Then the image vanished, leaving her gasping. Kai's fingers tightened around hers, his pupils dilating. "You felt that, it wasn't a question. I don't know what you're talking about." Mira yanked her hand back, her heart hammering. "I have to go." She tried to sidestep him, but he moved with her, blocking her path with effortless grace. Not aggressive, but unmistakably intentional. You've been experiencing things, he said quietly. Strange things. Powers you can't explain or control. Mira's breath caught. I don't. Objects moving when you're emotional. Breaking when you're stressed. You can sense things about people, can't you? Their intentions. Their lies. His gaze bore into hers. And you've felt me watching you. Following you. Terror and something else, something dangerously close to relief, warred in her chest. If you're stalking me, I'll call campus security. I'm not stalking you. He took a half step closer and she caught his scent. Pine and rain and something wild. Elemental. I'm protecting you. From what? From people who would hurt you if they knew what you were. His voice dropped lower, urgent. Mira, you're not human. Not entirely. And you're in danger. The rational part of her brain insisted this was insane, that she should run, scream, get help. But the irrational part, the part that had been breaking coffee cups and reading emotions and feeling his presence like a second heartbeat, that part whispered that he was telling the truth. What am I? The question emerged as barely a whisper. Kai's eyes seemed to glow in the dim hallway. You're Mira. There you are. Professor Chen's cheerful voice shattered the moment. Mira spun to see her advisor emerging from her office, coffee mug in hand and reading glasses perched on her nose. The older woman's smile faltered when she saw Kai. Oh, I didn't realize you had company. When Mira turned back, Kai was already walking away, his long strides eating up the hallway. He paused at the top of the stairs, glancing back over his shoulder. Stay safe, Mira, he called, and stay away from the woods after dark. Then he was gone, disappearing down the stairwell like smoke. Friend of yours? Professor Chen asked carefully. I don't know, Mira admitted. I don't know what he is. She couldn't concentrate during the meeting. Professor Chen's words about thesis proposals and research methodology washed over her meaninglessly, while her mind replayed every second of the encounter. You're not human. Not entirely. What did that even mean? And why had he warned her about the woods? Crescent Valley University backed onto a large nature preserve. Hundreds of acres of old-growth forest that the students used for hiking and camping. Mira had always avoided it, driven by an instinct she'd never understood. The trees felt too close, too watching, too much like they were waiting for something, waiting for her. Mira? Professor Chen's concerned face swam into focus. Are you all right? You look pale. I'm fine. Just tired. She gathered her things mechanically. I should go. Thank you for your time. She fled the building, emerging into late afternoon shadows. The campus was quieter now, most students having retreated to dorms or the library for evening study sessions. Mira pulled out her phone, thinking she'd call her roommate Jen, maybe grab dinner at the dining hall. The screen was black. Dead. She'd charged it that morning. It had been at 87% when she walked into the cafe. Stay safe, Mira, and stay away from the woods after dark. Mira looked up. The sun was sinking fast, painting the sky in shades of blood and amber. And somehow, without meaning to, she'd walked to the edge of campus, to the trailhead that led into the preserve. The trees loomed before her, their branches creating a canopy so thick almost no light penetrated. The trail disappeared into darkness after only a few feet. A weathered sign read, Crescent Valley Nature Preserve, closed after sunset. She should turn around. Go back to her dorm, lock the door, maybe look up that nice psychiatrist her mom kept recommending. Instead, she felt drawn forward, pulled by an invisible thread she couldn't name. This is incredibly stupid, she told herself, but her feet were already moving, carrying her onto the trail. The temperature dropped immediately, not just cool, cold, bone-deep, like stepping into a walk-in freezer. Mira wrapped her arms around herself, her breath misting in the air. How was it this cold? It was October in Oregon, not the Arctic. She'd only gone about 50 yards when she heard it, growling, low, deep, and definitely not human. Mira froze. The rational voice in her head was screaming now, demanding she run, but her body wouldn't obey. She could only stand there as something massive moved through the trees to her left, branches cracking under its weight. Then she saw the eyes, red, glowing, fixed on her with unmistakable hunger. The wolf. No, not a wolf, too big to be a wolf, emerged from the undergrowth. It was the size of a small horse with black fur and fangs that gleamed in the dying light. Saliva dripped from its jaws. Oh God, Mira breathed. The creature snarled and lunged. Mira threw up her hands instinctively, and something exploded out of her. A wave of pure force that sent the wolf thing flying backward into a tree with a sickening crack. It yelped, scrambled to its feet, and forming a semicircle around her. They were all the same. Too large, too savage, their red eyes gleaming with intelligence and malice. No, no, no. Mira backed up, but there was nowhere to go. They were everywhere, closing in, their growls harmonizing into a nightmare symphony. The largest one crouched, preparing to spring. Then a different sound split the air, a roar that made the trees themselves seem to tremble. It was primal, ancient, carrying a weight of absolute authority that Mira felt in her bones. A silver-gray blur exploded from the forest. Mira only had a moment to register the massive wolf, even bigger than the black ones, with fur like moonlight and those same silver-gray eyes, before it slammed into her attackers. The clearing became a whirlwind of violence, teeth and claws and snarls. The silver wolf moved like liquid death, tearing through the black wolves with brutal efficiency. It was protecting her. He was protecting her. Because somehow, impossibly, Mira knew that the silver wolf was Kai. The fight lasted maybe 30 seconds. The black wolves that weren't dead were fleeing, crashing through the undergrowth with yelps of terror. The silver wolf watched them go, hackles raised, then slowly turned to face Mira. They stared at each other for a long moment. Then the wolf's form began to shimmer and shift. Bones cracking, muscle reforming, fur receding. Within seconds, Kai stood before her, human again, his clothes somehow intact. His chest heaved with exertion and there was blood on his hands. Whether his or theirs, she couldn't tell. "You shouldn't have come here," he said roughly. "I told you, what the hell are you?" Mira demanded. Her voice shook, but she was surprised to find she wasn't screaming. Maybe she was in shock. Or maybe deep down this all made a terrible kind of sense. "I'm a shifter." He took a cautious step toward her. "A werewolf, if you prefer the term. And so are you, partially. You're what we call an omega. A wolf with powers beyond the normal range. Rare. Valuable." His jaw tightened, and very, very hunted. I can't." But even as she protested, something clicked into place. The powers, the connection she felt to the forest, the way she'd known what he was. "Those wolves were rogues," Kai continued, "sent to capture or kill you. They've been tracking you for weeks. I've been stopping them before they could get close. Why?" The question emerged as barely a whisper. "Why would you protect me? You don't even know me." Something flickered in his eyes, something intense and possessive and almost tender. "Because you're my mate," the world stopped. "You're..." "What? Fated mate? We're bonded, Mira. Have been since the moment you turned 21 last month. I felt it from 3 states away. The pull, the connection. That's why I came here." He took another step closer. "You feel it too. I know you do." She wanted to deny it, wanted to laugh in his face and call him crazy. But she couldn't. Because that heat she'd been feeling, that presence, it made sense now. He'd been there all along, watching over her, keeping her safe. "The rogues who attacked you tonight are just the beginning," Kai said quietly. "There's someone who wants to use your power. Someone who's been looking for an omega for a very long time. And now that they know where you are," a howl split the night. Then another. And another. Dozens of them from every direction. They were surrounded. Kai's expression went hard and he moved in front of her, protective and lethal. "We need to run now. Where?" He glanced back at her, and in his silver eyes she saw something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. A claim, a promise, a declaration of war against anyone who would hurt her. "To my territory, to my pack," his voice dropped to a growl, "to your new home. Because whether you accept it or not, Mira, you're mine now, and I don't let anyone touch what's mine." The howls grew closer. The trees seemed to close in, and in the distance Mira heard something worse than the rogues, a voice human and cold cutting through the darkness. "Found you, little Omega. The Alpha King can't protect you forever. Eventually you'll belong to me." Kai's hand found hers, large and warm and steady. "Trust me," he said. And as the shadows came alive with red eyes and snapping jaws, as the mysterious voice laughed with dark promise, Mira realized she had no choice. She squeezed his hand and whispered, "Okay." They ran into the darkness together, leaving her old life behind and running toward a destiny neither of them could escape.